Patrick Mahomes, who spent his college years at Texas Tech University, Wreckham, has gone on to become one of the most famous and most successful NFL players of all time. After he got drafted, this video of him went super viral of him throwing a football outside of the stadium. And there's two things that he needs to think about whenever he's doing this. One, obviously, he has to think about how high he needs to throw it up. But two, he also has to think about how far he needs to throw it forward in order to clear the stadium. And these are two very important things for us to think about too whenever we study functions. Luckily, this video is over domain and range where we're going to study exactly that. First, let's go over some basic vocabulary. So first, domain is going to be all the x values in our function, and it's going from left to right. That's our x-axis. Range is the opposite. It's going from bottom to top on our y-axis. Okay, domain is all the x values. Range is all the y values. And so I've got a visual here. I've got part of a graph on the screen, and I can slide that red dot from one side of the graph to the other. And as I slide it, I see that my domain is expanding along the x-axis and my range is expanding along the y-axis. When I get to the bottom of this function, though, I see the blue stops going down, but it also doesn't go up any further because we've gone all the way down. And now we're just going back into area that we've already covered. And so it goes all the way down until it can't go any lower. But once we hit that lowest point, it stays low because all of those values are going to be included. And domain is going from the leftmost point all the way to the rightmost point. The next thing we have to talk about is included or excluded values. Sometimes our functions are going to get really, really close to a value without actually touching it. And other times it will. And so if it doesn't actually touch that point, we're just going to say it gets really, really close and exclude that specific value. We can tell if a value is included if the function has a closed circle or a solid line at that point. That's our default. We're always going to assume that the value is included unless we're told otherwise. We can tell if that value is excluded if there's an open circle at that point. And so when we write an interval notation, we're defaulting to these squared brackets. Our domain, we're going to write our leftmost value, comma, our rightmost value. Range is going to be the same thing. We're going to write our lowest value, comma, our highest value of the function. And again, we're going to always use those squared brackets unless we're otherwise told with an open circle that the value is excluded. And then we'll switch that value's bracket for a parentheses. So let's do an example and find the domain and range of these two graphs. So just like I did in the very beginning, I'm going to highlight my axes based on where the domain and range are. So if you have a highlighter or a colored pencil, I recommend you doing this as well. I'm going to start with the domain and do that in green. And so for the domain, I'm looking, where's my leftmost point? And I see that I don't go past left or any more to the left after this point right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at this point, and I see that I'm traveling all the way along my x-axis until I get to here because I have this other stopping point on the right, which stops me from going right any further. So my domain is covered in this highlighted green area. And so my leftmost point I see is right here at -5. That's where I started going left. I have an open circle here at -5, which means instead of a bracket, I'm going to use the parentheses. And then I stop going right here at +5. And there I have the closed circle, so I'm going to use my bracket there. Now range I'm going to do in blue. And so range, I'm starting with the lowest point and I'm going to the highest point. And so I'm going to find my lowest point, which starts right here. And I'm going to highlight all the way up until I stop going up, until I don't have any more graph above it, which is stopping right there. So now let's find the lowest point is right here. That's at -5 on the y-axis, -5. I don't have an open circle or anything there, so I'm going to continue to use the bracket. And at the very highest point where we stopped going up is right here at 4. And again, there's no open circle there, so I'm going to use the bracket there as well. Okay, let's do the second example. Again, I'll do domain in green. And so I'm looking for my rightmost point, which is going to be right here. And so if I'm going to highlight, I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to keep going and keep going and keep going. But I see I have this arrow here. And so there's nothing specifically telling me that this is ever going to stop. So I'll continue highlighting. I'm going to highlight that arrow there as well, because that signifies that we're going to the right forever, right? This graph is never going to stop going up and to the right. And so my domain, my leftmost value, is wherever we started, which is right here. Once again, it's at -5. And I have a closed circle there, so I'm going to go ahead and put the bracket around it. And now we said the rightmost point, well, it never stops going right, so we don't have a rightmost value. If that's the case, what we can do is we're going to use infinity to say that this is never going to stop going to the right. Anytime I write infinity, I'm going to use a parentheses around it to say that we can never touch an infinite amount of something. Next, I'll do the range again in blue. And so I'm going to look for my lowest point, which I can find starting right here. I see that I don't go past this lowest point here, right? I can't start it up here because I see I have graph down here. So my lowest value is actually right here at -2. And then if I'm going to highlight, I'm going to keep going up and up and up and up and up. And just like last time we said that graph is going to go up and to the right forever. So I will highlight this arrow as well. Now my lowest value we said was right here at -2. And since there's no open circle there, it's just a solid line, I'm going to use the bracket like that. And then I go all the way up and I highlighted that arrow there as well. So I'm going to say that also goes to infinity and use another parentheses around that. And that's how we find the domain and range of given graphs, given functions. I hope you had as much fun as I did, and I'll see you in the next video.